We are united in solidarity because we understand that Bill C-31 and C-38 are frontal attacks to the principles and moral fiber that Canada has held for many years. Because it was immigrants who built this country, and we have a stake in the growth and the future and stability of this country. That's why we say that these laws are divisive, regressive, and completely anti-Canadian. What we are seeing in this laws are a slow degradation of everything that Canada once stood for in the world and what we all knew it to be. This is why we have to work together to counteract these unjust laws and understand that if this government can take the rights from refugees, tomorrow they can take your rights and the rights of everyone.
Well, it seems fairly extraordinary to me that on behalf of the minister, you would not arrange a meeting not only with his constituents, but with physicians, many of whom are in different disciplines across the city, to discuss serious concerns. There's sections here called medical emergency. Listen to this, doctors. Medical emergency dash heart attack. Then it says coverage provided based on client status. For heart attack, none. None for a heart attack.
And we are facing an economic crisis. We are seeing levels of unemployment that we have not seen since the Great Depression. We know that it's not just this government, but that the root causes of these problems are capitalism, are colonialism, are patriarchy. The government uses fear to impose these measures of austerity, and this is very much happening with the Harper government. So people are afraid, so oftentimes won't rise up because they are afraid that they will lose their job, that their organization's funding will get cut from the Harper government.
That at peak, Canadian banks received $114 billion worth of support, while our politicians were trumpeting the soundness of the Canadian banking system on the global stage. 3 of Canada's banks were at some point underwater. Canada's banks declared $27 billion in profits between them. The CEOs of each of these banks were among the highest paid CEOs in the country. It's clear that the support provided for Canadian banks was much more substantial than Canadians were led to believe.
But when we realize that the countries that the minister now considers safe are the same countries where the Canadian mining industry have interest in developing projects, that tells you where his alliances are.
The Native Women's Association of Canada, along with other national Aboriginal organizations, have had their funding cut 100% in the health portfolio. This is not about helping the communities. This is about turning its back on more than 70% of Aboriginal women who live off reserve. This is a choice the government's making. This is why we need a strong Aboriginal voice, so we can inform the government, use evidence so they can inform their policies.
We know that the reserving land for the single use of an exclusive one group is racist. It was racist in South Africa when Stephen Harper supported apartheid in that country. It was racist in the U.S. South under Jim Crow laws. It was racist when it was imposed on the indigenous peoples of this country through reservations and residential schools. And it's racist today and has been racist for too many years when it's exercised against the Palestinians in their own lands.
CBC News obtained a tape through an access to information request. On it, a conversation between 2 Ontario provincial police officers during the standoff over land with Native protesters. The officers made racial slurs, and their own camera recorded their comments. The tape was made one day before police shot and killed Dudley George, an unarmed Native protester. Here's what the officers said.
Is there still a lot of press down there?
No, there's no one down there. This big fat Indian.
Camera's rolling.
Yeah.
We had this plan, you know. We thought if we could get 5 or 6 cases of Labatt's 50, we could bait them.
Yeah.
Then we could have this big net at a pit. Creative thinking. Huh? Works in the south with watermelon.
And so what do you think about the immigration bill that he's come out? You know some of the details,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I do, and I think it's really dangerous what he's doing. I think that our country was built on immigration, and we have a policy of multiculturalism, which is what I grew up in and with and believed in. And now he's creating laws and rules that are treating immigrants as criminals, basically. That, you know, his policies are destructive and don't do anything to support what our country's about.
And the criminalization of refugees goes against any humanitarian and inclusive tenets that Canada ever stood for.
I really don't have faith in government or parliamentary efforts in curing this. You know, that would be a trend that's strong within Occupy and a lot of the larger movements that we've modeled after, like the indignance in Europe and the Arab Spring. People are having less and less faith in the political institutions that have been provided for us.
Bill 78 was just passed yesterday, which basically limits the civil rights of many Canadians.
We're in Montreal right now. We're celebrating the police's new silly little laws. So right now there's concussion grenades going off, and the police are separated a group of us, and they're splitting them off, and there's more coming this way right now. Come on, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. So how was your first concussion grenade?
Fine. I was happy with it. I could smell the tear gas, and it brought out tears of joy.
Another thing I want to mention is everybody says that you know, the protesters are so violent in Montreal. You know, I did see some windows broken. I did see a couple rocks thrown. I'm not going to lie about that, but that was only after tear gas, concussion grenades, rubber bullets, shields and batons, and being chased down, and sound cannons, and kettling. So I mean, you just want to peacefully assemble and march on the streets. That should be our rights as Canadians, to be able to do that. But, you know, they're taking all that away incrementally through all these bills. Wake the fuck up.
It seems to be happening everywhere, any type of dissent whatsoever, and it meets with force and violence from the police. So good luck trying to publicly assemble in your city. Do it though.
But there is a serious hole and default in this plan and in their strategy. And that hole is that solidarity is stronger than fear. And that is what the Quebec students have shown us, and that is what movements like Occupy are showing us, and that is how, as Ben mentioned, we need to win, and that is how we are going to win.
Let's remember the words of Martin Luther King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.